Hello, friends. Welcome to this premiere and technically complicated first episode of the Kingsman and the Cyber Guy podcast. I am one of your hosts, retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent Daramont. Those of you who know me know I go by the Cyber Guy, and we can explain that as we go forward. But I'm not doing this podcast alone. And this one is being streamed oddly on Riverside. It was going to be on a different platform, which was not working correctly, so I had to move it to another one. And I bring in my co-host and let him talk, and I'm going to try to make sure people can find this on LinkedIn. So let me bring in my co-host. He goes by the Kingsman, and he can explain why that's the case. The owner of Star Apex Security Consulting, I forget the name, I should know it off the top of my head. Michael McQuaid from the lovely Isle of the UK. Michael, welcome. Despite our technical problems.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, getting there. We had an IT issue, didn't we?
We did. It's a good thing we didn't practice this yesterday. That would have been probably a smart thing to do. I'm not thinking. All right, so explain explain first why you're the Kingsman, and then we'll get to why we're doing this podcast, and we'll do all those kind of things. So while you're doing that, I'm going to kind of fix this on the LinkedIn and YouTube side, but you go ahead and explain why. I'm going to hide myself so it doesn't look stupid, so go ahead and tell the people who you are.
No worries. So my name's Michael McQuaid. I do go by the name The Kingsman. I was given that nickname when I was part of the UK intelligence community from the film The Kingsman. So if you go through the story of that film, it was a kid that was from a council estate, failed school, had learning difficulties, and struggled to get on in life and never really knew their true potential. And I was lucky enough to serve my country and was part of the UK intelligence community. So that's how I got the nickname. My colleagues gave me that nickname. There's a lot worse nicknames that I could have been given, due to that environment that you work in. However, I'll stick with that nickname. I wasn't posh enough to get 007, so the Kingsman will have to do. And Darren will be somewhere in the background. This would have been perfect for a Q&A session here.
Yeah, keep going. I got it going on LinkedIn, so I'm still working on the YouTube. But you go ahead and so if you could talk about how we met and how this kind of formed to where we are today. I'll let you do that, and I'll pop in a minute. So carry on.
So how we met. So I believe I sent you a LinkedIn connection request back in October last year, saying that you had a similar background to myself with the US intelligence community. So I sent you a connection request. There were a couple of DMs. Then we jumped on a video call whilst you were still working for your defense company in the US. Shared some stories, had some common interests, and said, hey, let's stay in touch. And that's kind of how that worked out. And then we stayed in touch, got on really well. And then you then started your cybersecurity company in January this year, I believe it was. And you experienced the same problems that I had of being a government employee and not being given the correct tools to become an entrepreneur. So you're not taught how to do marketing, how to do sales, how to do systems, how to do processes. And you came to me for some help, and I then put you in contact with my business coach, who helped me with the recruitment side, and then he went on to help you with your cybersecurity company.
Correct. So, all right. So let me step back a second from a technical perspective. So this particular live stream, as I figured it would be, was rife with problems to start with, but it is now active on both YouTube and LinkedIn. There's probably nobody watching it, but there are at least the two of us. Now, if you are watching it, I have the ability to see comments, so feel free to post comments in here, and maybe we'll respond to them if we can figure out how to do that as well. But this whole plan had a whole bunch of different video machinations, but the application we're using didn't work correctly. So here we are. We got it up and going a little late, better late than never. But yes, we met on LinkedIn. We both had burgeoning cybersecurity companies based on our background, right? I was former FBI, you were former UK intelligence. And there was some synergy there. Let's just talk once a month and we can help each other out. You introduced me to your business coach. And as we've gone through that, we've looked through ways we can continue to work together. And so we've done a couple of things we'll talk about in a bit. But the impetus to this podcast was you came on my other podcast a couple of times, right? So I've done a host of different podcasts. The Cyber Smart Morning News Update. I don't do it any longer. I wasn't really getting a lot of traction. As much fun as it was to do it all every day. And actually, when you subscribe to this podcast, which we'll talk about the format and how we're going to do that going forward, you're going to see the old versions of the Cyber Smart Mornings Update. All I did was rebrand that podcast channel instead of buying a new one because it was cheaper to do that. So that's why you're going to see those old things. You can go back and listen to those if you want some amusement, if you want. All right, so there's that. But we decided let's look for a niche area that's kind of underserved that needs to talk about physical and cybersecurity. This whole podcast is not just a cybersecurity podcast, although it's part of it, but it's also a physical security podcast. And we decided to focus on logistics companies. So that's kind of the focus area for half of the podcast. What I mean by that, this is going to be a weekly podcast. When we get it kind of figured out better and how to do it more correctly, it'll be every week. Weeks 1 and 3 of the month will be focused on logistics companies. And the issues they're dealing with from a cyber and from a physical security perspective to help them not become victims. The other weeks, 2 and 4, we'll talk to more influencers within the cyber and physical security worlds, talk about what they do, why it's important, and give you a variety of different things to talk about. And the reason we kind of looked at logistics companies is because of something happened in the UK called the Cybersecurity and Resiliency Bill. So since that's your home country, Mike, I'll let you explain what that is and why it's important and why it led us to this point.
So the Cybersecurity Resilience Bill was introduced in the King's Speech last year, and it was going to be impacting, I say impacting, it's actually a good thing, it's going to be touching on certain industries in the UK. So you've got critical infrastructure, supply chain, energy, data centres and MSPs. So from a nation state threat actor and from hacking groups, when it comes to UK jurisdiction, those industries that I've just listed out are the most at threat. They're the most ones that will be targeted. And there's been plenty of evidence to that from Russia and China that have been attacking the UK for many years now. In the cyber world, Russia is more known for the physical threats to the UK. So the cybersecurity resilience bill has been rolled out because these companies are looking at cybersecurity expense as a bottom line. It's something that I'm too small, won't happen to me, it'll happen to somebody else. Or as I've not got the budget for this, I'm not going to bother with it. And the government's saying, no, that's not the attitude that you can go with going forward. You need to actually get a grip of yourself, get a grip of the situation and get yourself protected. Which is great news for the cybersecurity community because we can actually now be able to start helping people. The ramifications of companies do not comply with the cybersecurity resilience bill is when we have cyber attacks, so we always say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When it happens, they've got 72 hours to report to the National Cyber Security Centre. For every day that's delayed after that, it's £100,000 fine a day, or 10% turnover, whichever one is greater. So the government's implemented this because they need to start taking it seriously. I mean, the UK depends on supply chain, it depends on energy, it depends on critical infrastructure. If those industries go down, the UK goes down. And decades have changed where it's not became boots on the ground warfare, it's now became digital and cyber warfare. That's where a lot of the defence budget is getting spent now. And as somebody who worked in the UK intelligence community, I saw this countless of times where not even just the big corporations, the enterprise companies, even the medium, small companies, were getting cyber attacks and going down. Now, from a government perspective in the UK, we are responsible for protecting national security. We can't also protect companies at the same time. There's far too many companies. So this is why the government says to companies, you need to now sort this out for yourselves. We can't protect you, we can't help you. And statistics are showing that year on year, the percentages are rising of cyber attacks in these critical industries that I've just listed.
Right, and so logistics have a lot to think about, not just in the UK, but also in the US and anywhere else in the world. This is not just a UK problem. It is obviously the part of critical infrastructure, and nation-state actors, criminal actors, are going to target them because you have something that the bad guys want, be it your information, be it your network to use as a launching pad against other entities that are upstream of you, if you supply to someone else. And there's certainly been instances recently, especially in the UK, of where this has been a problem for logistics companies. M&S, explain what M&S is for the American listeners who don't know what M&S is. Mike, explain M&S, who M&S is.
M&S. Okay, so M&S it's a shop that sells groceries and clothes. They're a pretty big company in the UK. I believe they're in the top 100. They're on the stock market. You know, the turnover value is huge. I don't even know what the US equivalent would be, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's something, I want to say Walmart, but that's not really right because it's not, Walmart's not a grocery store, maybe Publix, that's one, Wegmans, but none of those are really, there's really not a national grocery store chain, because a grocery store chain, because we're such a big country, different states, so it's kind of hard for us to do that. But yeah, so there was a company, a logistics company that's been around for over 100 years called the Knights of Old, got hit with a ransomware attack a couple years ago and had to fold up shop. After 100 and so many years, 750 trucks, a lot of employees had to basically shut down their business. So certainly saw the need there. And the reason there are these gaps, logistics companies have both OT and IT networks, so there's that kind of segmentation, there's that kind of communication between those networks. There's unprotected networks, there's facilities all over the place that likely lack physical security perspectives, or physical security, I guess is the better way to put that, and things like that, and probably a lack of incident response planning, among other things. Those are just kind of some things to highlight from that. So recognizing that, we said, well, let's kind of create this podcast around that. So obviously there's several, so it says the audio is very off, echoey and robotic sounding. Well, we're having good times with the technology stuff today. So for Fruit 2020, but since you mentioned, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Is it both audios or just one audio? And hopefully you can let us know how that is, because I think that's happening on LinkedIn too, because I had a message in the private chat that was happening. I don't know, honestly, how to fix that other than Mike's audio. I will say, for the podcast perspective, it's recording in my podcast platform and probably doesn't have that same thing. This is probably a Riverside / LinkedIn / YouTube issue, and I wish I had a good reason for why that's the case, but well, you know what we could do is I'm going to bring up an audio here from YouTube and see what it sounds like. Probably doesn't have that same thing. Oh yeah, it's both of us, so that's not good. Let's try LinkedIn.
IT's great when it works.
Yep, that on LinkedIn too. So I would say this: if you're listening, stop listening. Just stop. Go somewhere. I don't know how to fix it. I frankly have no idea anymore how to do this at this point. I've done everything I can to try to make the audio good, and it's not working. So you'll kind of have to go to the podcast piece. So what do we do now, Mike? What do you think? So this was a good idea, which is failing miserably. What do you plan? I wonder if. Let me try something real quick. So this might be, okay, let me try something real quick and we'll come right back. Hold on a second. So stay with me. I'm going to turn my stuff off and turn it back on.
Maybe we should contact the FBI. That sounds better, by the way.
All right, how about now? Still bad? Sound better?
Wow. Darren, you sound like a new man.
Okay, you know what it was? It was my freaking podcast, my Rodecaster, the thing that I do my podcasting with. That's pretty awesome that didn't work out right. But now, hey, at least it works now, right? So we're saying it's better. So.
Comical. Well, we can comfortably say me and Darren were not IT guys.
Oh, okay. There we go. We're still good. You guys still in? So we're still going. Okay, that's pretty awesome. How we doing? So,
Darren,
does it sound
Darren.
better?
You literally set up the FBI cyber squad, and you're having an IT issue like this. This is incredible.
This is nothing to do with cyber. This is audio technology. So let me say this: does the audio sound better now? Is the audio better? Hello, can you hear me? Is the audio better? Is the audio better? Okay, look. So it does sound. The audio should now sound better. Can you hear me? So now Mike can't hear me. That's pretty awesome. Let me check.
No, I can hear you.
Okay,
I can hear you.
but the audio's better.
Yeah, they're much better.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like I'm flying about in NASA at the minute.
I now know what the problem is. It only took me 45 minutes to figure it out. It had nothing to do with anything other than this little box right here in front of me that does the audio piece. So for those who's still here, thank you for still being here. I will not probably publish this audio-wise because it's completely jacked all that hell. All right. So, but at least it works better now. Okay. So fantastic. All right. So you know what? Screw all this. So in addition to why we created the podcast to help logistics and do all this other stuff, there's another reason we did this. And so we mentioned earlier that we had a business coach that we both use that helped us with that. And he actually happens to be here. So let's bring in John McCarthy. John, does it sound better now for you too?
Hey, do you know what? Don't blame me for getting it right. I'm normally the guy that breaks stuff, so I'm glad you fixed it before I got on. But yeah, it's good to see you all.
Yes. So, all right. So the three of us had worked together for at least 7 or 8 months now, and there was an idea. So I'll let John or Mike talk about the idea, where we're at, what this is, beyond just the podcast piece. So John, you kind of started this ball rolling. So explain how you got to where we are now. Like what was it that created where we're going here?
Where did the inspiration come from?
Well,
you being FBI, you guys like the Hollywood, so you were kind of telling me everything that you did, and it was all kind of open book. But Mike wouldn't tell me anything, and I realized who he was working for in the intelligence community, so I knew better than to ask. I knew kind of who he'd been with, and I won't say that on live. But as I got to know you both, and it was just these odd snippets, these odd things you were just dropping conversation, because I'm not from your world. I don't really understand it or the implications, but it was becoming really apparent that your skill sets, your experiences were off the charts. You know, just phenomenal. You know, there's a lot of good people out there, techie geeks who do all the cyber and everything else, but you guys operate at a very different level. Not just on the cyber, but what was interesting was the way you worked with threat intelligence, the counter intelligence, and all the other stuff that forms the bigger picture. You know, I don't know what I can say about what you did, Mike, but you were briefing some pretty serious people doing some pretty serious operations. And as I was getting to know both of you, it just became apparent that the skill set, like, there must be a commercial value to it. We must be able to utilize this in Civilian Street, because you both did a great job in your departments. But I think neither of you could work out who bought this stuff, because there was no sort of direct jobs for you to go to. I remember thinking, you guys, let's just sit down and talk about what we've got, get on the joint call and see where it goes. And it just became really apparent that what you did, there's other cyber teams out there, but the level that you operate is very high, very, very intense. Your experience is insane. And with the additional, because Darren does a lot of cyber, but Mike does a lot more besides. And I think bringing those two together, there's probably nothing else like it in the world outside of governmental organizations. So then, and the things when you're running a business, I've been doing this for 11 years now, here helping people grow. If someone's going to pay you for something, or you want to start a business, you've got to give people something they want, or take away a pain that they've got. And that was the key thing. And we went through, three of us, through various iterations, which kind of drove you guys insane on the marketing front. It's like, what are we going to give, and who are we going to give it to? Why would they want it? Or what's the problem that we're solving? And we looked at various different target markets, and we decided not to go for a few because they just kind of wouldn't get it. And then, as Mike was saying earlier, when the cyber security and resilience bill came out, we thought logistics and supply. And then my background, I spent 15 years in the British Army. So whilst I don't have the experience that you guys do, I've been around the military even back in the 80s in the Cold War. So I was very kind of attuned and dialed in to security and raw signals for a time as well. So it made sense what security is and how little of it civilians do. So I was able to kind of join the dots. And building this has been a whole ton of fun, and we've been all really looking forward to the 31st of July, 2025, because the website's about to go live.
And why is that? So what does that mean?
What does it mean? Well, I think as I said, your skill sets are incredible. We spent a lot of time building up what it is that we do, the offer that we've got, which you might cover later. And now, but the thing is, we can only take on 10 clients in the first year.
So, but I guess the question, that's not my question. I guess my question, and maybe I missed it because I'm like doing 3 things in the background here while you're talking. Did you say that we started a company? Did that come out, or did I?
Oh no, I think we can't. No, you're right. Sorry, man. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So after that, we've got to provide this service. What's it going to be? So we pulled it together. We've gone through various different iterations of the company name. But the company names, we've got registered at Company's House. So I'll let Mike share that.
Right. So the point, so Mike, go ahead. You know what I'm saying. Why don't you go ahead and say this?
So this isn't like an GCHQ puzzle, trying to pull away with that Ed John's trying to say here. Newsflash, we've started a business between the 3 of us. We're all 3 of us are co-founders of a business. The business name is called Five Eyes, and that originates from Five Eyes, the intelligence organization. So a bit of a background history on Five Eyes. So Five Eyes originated in 1941, and it was between the UK and the US intelligence community with the code breakers. So this was during World War II. They worked together, they shared actionable intelligence with each other. And then fast forward to 1946, after World War II, there was the UK-USA agreement, which solidified the UK and the US intelligence community working together. And as time rolled on, you then had the introduction of Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So including the US and the UK, we make up the Five Eyes. So we thought it was a fitting name for UK and US intelligence community coming together, and that's why we created Five Eyes.
Yes. So essentially, it's a new venture between the 3 of us. John is the director of operations that talks the technical or the business speak for the technical people who don't talk the business speak, which is me and Mike. Mike is the director of threat intelligence, which includes the physical security piece. And I am the director of cyber operations. So we're all three directors. Do we want to show the roadmap to kind of talk about how we initially talked to this? Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So the initial idea is we talk to these entities and logistics. Again, the reason we're doing a podcast for logistics companies is because the business is focused on logistics companies, which is not to say if you're a company that's not logistics, we wouldn't talk to you as well, but we're focused primarily on logistics organizations initially under this particular idea and plan. And so before I get to this, there's a blue and a red and a purple section. Give the analogy, Mike. This is your analogy. I don't want to steal it and step on it. So go ahead.
Yeah, so probably an analogy, because when I explain this to people who don't understand cybersecurity, and even if you've never watched a game of football, you still understand it. So as long as you understand how a football team sets up, or as what they call it in the US, soccer, then you'll understand how this all works out. So in cybersecurity, you've got effectively 3 teams. You've got a blue team, a purple team, and a red team. So your blue team is your defensive. So that's roles such as like a SOC analyst, SOC engineer. So those guys are the defensive wall for an organization. Then you've got the purple team, which is your midfielders, for the football analogy. They're the guys, so in the footballing world, they're the guys who are almost like the super glue to the defenders and the attackers. They're the guys who work in the middle. They're the masterminds. They're the ones who make everything come together. So in cybersecurity, it's the exact same. We've got a purple team who work between blue teams and red teams. They're the super glue. They're the guys who work in the middle with both teams. Then you've got the red team, which is the offensive team. So in football, that would be your strikers and your wingers. Your red team in cybersecurity is roles such as like a pen tester. So those are the guys who, in the cybersecurity world, want to test the defense that you've got. So apologies if there's any Manchester United fans out there, right? But to bring it back into football analogy, if your defensive structure and your organisation is set up like Manchester United, who finished, I believe, 18th last year in the Premier League, and you go against Liverpool, who finished first, and you go against their striking force. Liverpool, I'm not saying anything bad about Liverpool, but if that was the threat actor, if they've got the Liverpool forwards and you've got the Manchester United defence, in football they're going to score goals. In the cybersecurity world, they're going to penetrate your company. That's how I explain cybersecurity to people I've never heard of it before in their lives.
Very good. And so now so what we're looking at when we talk to companies is essentially this, and this is again, logistics is the main industry we're looking at, but this is really important to really any company, is that you have to start with the defensive piece. If you can't stop the bad stuff from coming in, the bad stuff's going to come in. It doesn't matter what you're doing otherwise. So our essential protection level there is kind of the basic things you need to do to protect yourself. This is going to be a dark web domain exposure report. Basically, we'll say, hey, here's what the bad guys have for you on the dark web. And so that's going to be, emails, passwords. We went to one company and showed them all of their emails and showed them the CEO's password and showed them how vulnerable they potentially were, right? Doesn't mean the bad guys are actively exploiting that information, but the information's there and can be exploited. We'll do a cyber threat intelligence report, and you can read, I don't have to read these to you. You can see what's there. If you have more questions, certainly you can hit me up LinkedIn, I'll explain it to you. Then once, figuring it takes 3 months to kind of get to that point, some companies will want to go and have more offensive oriented capabilities, the red team part. So that includes some actual pen testing of their headquarters facility by physical pen testers, cyber pen testing, how deep can we get in the system? Ideally, not as deep as we would have, because there'll be a vulnerability assessment before this. Tabletop exercises all over the place, because if you don't test your responses to things, you're not going to be able to do much with them. So, and then that additional one-on-one support is somewhat, I look at it as equivalent to a virtual CISO and a virtual CSO all at the same time. And the cost to do both of those things is much more than the cost of what we're doing for the course of a year. And then the purple team, not every company will want the purple piece, but you'll get a whole host of different things. You'll get a SIM solution, some incident response support. We do not do the incident response. We are not taking on your risk as a company. We are helping you mitigate and remediate your risk. That's kind of the plan for that. So, and then if you stick with us for a year, then there is an immersive intelligence experience, which we can't talk about at this point. You'd have to become a client to know exactly what that is. So I'll leave that there. Now, if you're a friend of mine and want to hit me up on DM, I can kind of explain it, but excuse me, that's where that stands. So Mike, John, anything you want to add to that?
Yes. Pen test means nothing to most normal people. So you might want to explain what a physical penetration test is, Mike.
So physical penetration tester is going to be my job. It's not an adult film role. It's not as like it sounds. So a physical penetration tester, which was one of the roles that I did when I was part of the UK intelligence community. So I say fortunate enough. I say I was fortunate enough because it was one of my favourite jobs I've ever done in my life. But it was unfortunate for the people that I was doing it to. So effectively, what a physical penetration tester is, you're tasked to try and penetrate into a site as far as you can physically. So I was responsible once upon a time for physically penetrating military barracks, UK government buildings, and UK airports. So I'd be tasked to see how far I can get through in an airport with maybe something strapped to me, or how far I could get in a military barracks and place something that shouldn't be placed there, etc. So I'm coming out of retirement and get to do it again. Now, it sounds all scary. It sounds like, oh, Mike's just having a wee jolly getting to penetrate people's sites. But it's vitally important, because if I can get onto your site and start putting USB hard drives into towers, or I'm able to put fake bombs under people's desks, then you've got a clear security issue. I should not be able to get onto your site and do those things. So I just want to reiterate that it's not a scary thing. It's just for me to show you that. And this is what will happen as well. When I do it, I'll create an intelligence report to say how exactly I did it. And then we work together to make that not happen again. And just to add value to what Darren said earlier, is to really summarize what we're doing. It's an awareness educational training company, effectively. We are not there to take on security risk for any company. We want to prevent companies becoming companies in the UK, logistics and supply chain companies, from becoming a statistic, because 60% of companies that get cyber attacked in the UK go bust within the opening 6 months. So our job is to try and train people, make people aware, give the correct education that will lower that statistic. I think with mine and Darren's background, we're well equipped to be able to help the UK in that aspect. So that's all the value I've got to add. John, you were about to say something there.
No, I think it's what's been interesting is, I don't know, the people that are listening in the audience, if they're like me, where they're not into or experiencing cyber security, it's just something that gets left on the bottom of the pile, like health and safety almost used to be. And it's one of those things we'll do one day, and then maybe it's too late one day. But I think the thing is, maybe it's because I'm more aware now, but I think we're seeing Co-op, we're seeing Marks and Spencer's, Tesco's got I don't think it was cyber, but there's so much stuff going on, it's scary. And I think if everything's happening in the world now, it's not as safe as it used to be. We've got Russia, we've got China, we've got Iran, North Korea. And I think now I'm very aware, and talking to you two, I'm listening to a lot more interesting news reports that are out there. And it's almost like the wars now are going to be fought in cyber, not so much boots on the ground. And I think, and that's why infrastructure is so important. And yet, and as businesses, that's my background, is looking after businesses. It's our whole future. Maybe it's a family business that's been around for the last 100 years. Maybe it's our pensions, how we pay for our growing up our children. And it could be gone within 6 months just because one of the bad guys gets in. It's far more serious now than it has been for a very long time, I think. I think we need to kind of press that home.
So John, we actually interested to have this conversation actually, because when you first met me and Darren, you really never had any idea about this domain at all, not really much about the digital world. And then as you started working with us, you started to see a lot more, and you were listening to the educational content me and Darren was giving. So it'd be probably good for the listeners and the viewers who have no appreciation for our cybersecurity. Maybe there's a logistics company that's listening right now. They've barely know anything about cybersecurity at all. Can you explain that journey of how that happened for you? Like, what was like the penny drop moment? How long did it take you to fully grasp what me and Darren were talking about?
Well, I think because I spent 15 years in the military, and I joined in the 80s when the Cold War was still on. So I was in Germany in 87, 88, and we were getting briefed on the Berlin Wall and their actors that were over here and vice versa. So I was very aware of it as a young soldier then. And then you were getting into the barracks, and I was one of the guys that should have been stopping you. So it's just something you learn to be around. But I think this is a very safe country, and we go to work, we just come home again, we don't think much about it. I think so many of us, we're kind of so safe in this country, we don't open our eyes. And I think keep thinking like health and safety came out so many decades ago. People didn't take it seriously, but health and safety is a really important thing because people get injured, they can't come to work, people get killed, and then the owners then go to jail. And I think people are starting to see not it's just something has to happen, or they should happen, a tick box exercise. They're seeing it's a good way of looking after the people, which is generally their biggest resource, and also it's going to help them get better clients or retain clients if they're looking after the staff and the clients better. And I think where we are now with cyber, it's coming that way, but coming out at a real pace. The threat up there is insane. So it wasn't really so much of a penny drop moment, but I think I've had that kind of awareness for 40 something years. But I think what was interesting talking to your background, Mike, is the fact when you start talking about what Russia are doing and what China are doing, and it's the fact that we think they bomb our our military bases. They just take down the railway. They just switch off electricity. They just shut down our mobile phone networks. They stop trucks moving, and the country comes to a standstill. It's really frightening what can happen, and how much your former communities are doing to protect us. But they can't, as you said, they can't protect everybody.
See, Darren might not know this because he's in the US, right? But in the UK, if we get an inch of snow, the country comes to a standstill. You know
Correct.
what I mean? So it's like...
So I grew up in upstate New York. Trust me, we had no problem with snow. I would
see, in the UK, if we get an inch of snow, people are off work.
When I was growing up, I had to walk uphill both ways, barefoot in snow to get to school. So you guys complain. You guys complain about 26 degrees Celsius temperature. That's what the temperature is when I wake up. Come on, man. I'm in Alabama now. On both ends of this thing. Goodness, I can't get it. And the other problem is now I'm starting to spell defense with a C, program with 2 M's and an E. My English is getting bad. So
we're getting talk about the weather every call.
Right, and I will say, so let me say that not every podcast is going to be us talking about this business. This was just the purpose of this episode, was to kind of release that in. But like the next episode will be actually more about the stuff that I've done in podcasts for 5 years, talking about here's the problem, here's how to fix it, here's what it means, tactical solutions like this, and it leads into obviously the space that we're looking to move into, but even those things are important to businesses outside of logistics, meaning even though we're focused on logistics, if you're a company that is not logistics, you're like, that sounds interesting, I'd like to learn more. We'll talk to you too, don't get me wrong, but that we're not coming straight at you right away. And this is not going to be a UK business forever, correct?
No, John, you can take the honors for that one.
Yeah, I think, well, initially Mike just likes being in the warm. He's sort of trying to get his skin to go from blue to white, maybe even get a yeah, I think Americans, and I'm working with some Americans now, just by the nature of my current work. I'm finding the American, do you know, it's like I've always known the Americans because they're always on TV, but I've got to know them properly, and they're a really cool bunch to work with. And they make decisions fast, and they move, and they think big, and they go, which the Brits don't tend to do it so well. So I think it'll be a lot of fun running, because you're in America now, and you've got so many contacts out there. It'll be a lot of fun working this in the UK and the USA as well. The challenge is, or maybe it's not a challenge, the cybersecurity bill that we've got here opens up such a huge market for us, so many people that actually need our help. We're going to have to, if we do grow, well, not if, it's when we grow, we're going to have UK teams and US teams as well. So I can see this being a really fun business with good people. Right.
And one other thing I will say, like, we have a lot of services we offer. We don't do them all. A lot of those are partnerships with other companies. So if you happen to see that chart and you have a company, especially if you're a startup company, we want to work with startups that are doing new and unique things to build security in the space. If you do incident response, so reach out to us, because we're looking to create those partnerships to team up with areas that we may not necessarily work towards, but have a partner that can do those kind of things. We've already made some of those. So if you're one of those companies, feel free to hit us up. I mean, if you want, try not to pitch slap us on LinkedIn. That'd be fantastic, as we will try not to do to others. But I mean, I get, John loves it though. Pitch slap John all day long. That's his thing.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point, isn't it? Because it's one of those misconceptions that when people think of cybersecurity, they think of what we know as like a SIEM. It's like it's a tool, it's a software. That's what people think cybersecurity is. It's like, just protect my computer. But those who are part of the cybersecurity community know that cybersecurity is so much more broader than that. I mean, it's like 30 plus different jobs you can do in cybersecurity. So there's such a broad thing that, as impressive as Darren's background's been in the FBI, he cannot possibly do every single job in cybersecurity. And this is why we would like to partner with other companies that can do the things that we can't do. And it also works vice versa. We can do things that other companies can't do as well. So you've got that partnership merge with other companies.
Right. So like I like to say on most of my podcasts, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So we're at almost 40 minutes, even though minus the 15 minutes of really bad audio, thanks to me. So I'm going to have to go through and edit all of these things and remove some of that stuff. So if you've hung out this long, if you've made it this long, and not many have, clearly, but if you see this at another time and have made it to this part of the podcast, we want to offer you something free. And that something free is...
Oh, I love it. I want a signature with that.
Oh, no, it'll be a PDF. Free PDF of Get Cyber Smart, a user-friendly guide to protecting yourself, your family, and your business online. So if you'd like a free copy, I'll send you the PDF. Probably the people listening now already have a hard copy because they know me and so I already sent it to them. But if you made it this long, you've listened, you're interested, I'll send you the PDF. And, it's designed for all sorts of things. To cyber basics, basically, is really all it is. I sent it to John, but he couldn't read it, so he said, "No, I'm not interested."
I'll just do pictures. Hey,
right.
Dan, I don't know if you mentioned yet, like, your future plans for the podcast, some of the guests you'll be bringing on, because we haven't spoken about people that we're talking to. Probably not even allowed to talk about yet.
Right. So at the beginning, I think we talked about it, but you couldn't hear it because the audio was so bad. But so week 1 and 3 is the logistics focus. So we're going to focus on information news specific to that industry. Week 2 and 4 is more free-flowing with people, just cyber influencers, physical security people, not cyber influencers, but people who are cyber security professionals, people who are physical security professionals, other retired FBI agents, other retired UK military intelligence folks, no lawyers, though we probably won't talk to any of them because they're no fun. But that's kind of the idea. And if you want to be a guest on here, and we will probably try to live stream them if we can, because I'm always so good at it. That's been such a good time. Reach out to me if you're interested in being on. If you have a particular topic, if you have a product you want to talk about, I'm certainly happy to talk about. If you have something new in AI, machine learning, whatever the buzzword is, come on there. I'll leverage some of my contacts to bring them on. And I'll probably still do a couple of my other podcasts. The Cyber Guy podcast will continue periodically when we have stuff that's outside of the scope of this. Tactical Cyber podcast will probably also continue at some point once I can get with Paul, my other guest host, and get us organized to bring that back in. But so that's kind of the plan for the podcast. Now, will it always be Thursday? Probably, but I can tell you next week it won't be. I'm going on vacation, but I'll be back on Friday, so we'll probably do it next Friday. And so from a guest perspective, I'm trying to get someone from the Knights of Old to come talk about what exactly happened to them. So if anybody knows anybody from the Knights of Old, hit me up. I'm happy to reach out and chat with them. But so there's that. So Mike, John, any last words you'd like to throw out, words of wisdom as we move forward?
I'll go with mine. I'm just absolutely buzzing to come back out retirement again and get back into the game and doing all this again. I remember when me and John had the conversation back in January, and for a long time I've had that sort of fire in my belly that I've wanted to get back into it, and I just don't know how to get back into it. I didn't want to, rejoin the military or rejoin different organizations. I didn't want to do that. And then John, with his commercial business mind, went, well, you've got this skill set, Dan's got this skill set, let's merge it together and let's have some fun when we're doing it. So I'm just buzzing to get back into the game again.
John?
My last thing is, I think people watching are thinking we're going to be some kind of MI5, MI6, and we're going to be driving around in Aston Martins. But Mike, do you want to share the car that you had when you were on operations?
Yeah, so that's one of those misconceptions. Dan has it with FBI films and TV series, badass guys jumping out of planes and cars blowing up and stuff. And I don't imagine, that doesn't happen, but every film and episode's like that, isn't it? So in the UK, you've got James Bond, you've got 007, you've got Aston Martins, you've got Shaken Not Stirred. My career, I had a Skoda and a £30 daily food allowance. So if you're thinking of going into that as a career, don't think you're getting an Aston Martin, Russian chicks and Shaken Not Stirred. You got a Skoda and a £30 daily food allowance. So,
yeah.
Is there a picture? Is there a picture anywhere we can share?
What, of me and a Skoda?
Yeah. You still have that scooter, don't you? That's probably still how you get around.
No, a Skoda, the car manufacturer, Skoda, not a scooter.
See, what I'm hearing is scooter. It's like that thing we talked about with aspirin yesterday, whatever the hell the aspirin thing was.
Well, paracetamol.
Yeah, paracetamol. If any of my friends who are English have any idea, or US, but I'm sorry, not English, but are in the US and know what paracetamol is, that'd be fantastic to know. Please let me know if you know what that is. I had to look it up 3 times. Couldn't spell it. Well, anyway.
Thankfully, we're not selling cars or drugs or medicines. We stick to cyber.
Yep. All right. So one thing, I made one other error, so I'm going to, sorry, another good audio. So I'm basically bringing up the we're getting out of here music. So for Michael McQuaid, John McCarthy, Darren Mott here, thank you so much for taking the time to if you made it through the end. If you did, I'm going to go through and edit a lot of that crap out that doesn't sound good, so it's going to look funky. We'll get it together by next week. Thanks for listening. Check out the Five Eyes LinkedIn page, Five Eyes LTD. You can go to my profile, Mike's profile, John's profile, and link you to that. If you want to get more information there, hit us up. If you have thoughts, questions, if you do a service and want us to know, give us a call, because it's important to understand the threats targeting you so you can assess your risk, proceed wisely. Gentlemen, thanks for putting up with all of this. It'll be better next time. I truly do promise. And for everybody else, thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.
So what happens when you bring the US in to do stuff?